The automatic doors of the fluorescent-lit grocery store hissed open, admitting Julian Croft into a world he hadn't willingly entered in over a decade. At 45, Julian was a titan of venture capital, a man who moved markets with a phone call and whose net worth was a subject of fevered speculation in financial columns. He was used to the hushed reverence of Michelin star restaurants and the silent deference of his corporate boardroom. He was not used to the squeak of a wobbly cartwheel or the saccharine pop music leaking from overhead speakers. His personal assistant, who usually handled such mundane tasks, had called in with a family emergency. His chef was on vacation. And Julian, craving a specific brand of aged cheddar for a late-night snack, found himself adrift in aisle 5, feeling more out of place than he had during his first-ever pitch to a room full of skeptical billionaires. He found the cheese and made his way to the checkout, pulling out his phone to triage the dozens of emails that had flooded his inbox in the last 10 minutes. "Good evening," a calm, low voice said. Julian grunted in response, not looking up from his screen. He placed the cheese, a bottle of expensive mineral water, and a bar of dark chocolate on the conveyor belt. "Will that be all for you tonight?" the voice asked again. There was a clarity to it, a precision in the enunciation that was oddly out of place amidst the beeps and rustles of the checkout line. This time, Julian looked up. The cashier was a black woman, maybe in her late 30s. She wore the standard-issue red polo shirt of the grocery chain, her name, Anya, stitched neatly above a small logo. Her hair was pulled back in intricate braids, and her eyes, dark and intelligent, held a placid expression. But it was the way she held herself, a certain stillness, a spine-straight posture that seemed to resist the weary slump of her surroundings, that snagged his attention. "Yes. That's it," he said, his tone softening slightly. She scanned his items with an economy of motion that was almost elegant. "That'll be $28.47. As Julian tapped his exclusive, heavy metal credit card on the reader, his eyes fell on the book peeking out of her worn tote bag tucked under the counter. It wasn't a glossy magazine or a paperback thriller. It was a dense, academic-looking hardcover. He squinted to read the title, Asymmetric Shocks and Monetary Policy in a Globalized Economy. Julian froze. He knew that book. He had tried to read it. It was a notoriously difficult text by a Nobel laureate, a book that even his sharpest analysts at Croft Capital had complained about. "That's some light reading," Julian said, gesturing toward the bag. Anya's placid expression didn't change, but a flicker of something, surprise? Amusement, danced in her eyes. "It helps the time go by." "You're an economist?" he asked, the question blunt. It was a ridiculous assumption. She was a cashier. "I enjoy the subject," she replied, her voice smooth and noncommittal as she handed him the receipt. "Have a good night." Julian walked away, the crinkle of the bag in his hand drowned out by the roaring of his thoughts. The encounter was a splinter in his mind. All night, as he sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking the glittering city, he couldn't shake the image of her. The name tag, the red polo, and the title of that book. It was a dissonance he couldn't resolve. Julian Croft hadn't become a millionaire by ignoring his gut. His greatest successes came from seeing value where others saw nothing. The next day, he did something impulsive, something his board would have called reckless. He returned to the grocery store. Anya was there, scanning items with the same quiet efficiency. Julian waited in her line, his heart thumping with an unfamiliar mix of nervousness and excitement. "Back again?" she asked, a hint of a smile touching her lips. "I have a proposition for you," he said, ignoring the person behind him who was clearing their throat impatiently. "There's a global economic summit in 2 weeks. The Aspen Banking Conference. It's the most important gathering of financial minds in the world. I have a spare ticket. I want you to come. As my guest." Anya stopped scanning. For the first time, her professional calm shattered, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated disbelief. She looked at his tailored suit, his expensive watch, and then back at his earnest face. "Is this a joke?" "I'm completely serious," Julian said, sliding a business card across the counter. "All expenses paid. I'll have my assistant arrange everything. Just think about it." He paid for his water and left, leaving a stunned cashier and a line of bewildered customers in his wake. For Anya Sharma, the business card felt like a grenade in her hand. Julian Croft. A quick search on her phone revealed the man's identity. He wasn't just a millionaire, he was a legend. And he had invited her, a grocery store cashier, to one of the most exclusive financial conferences in the world. Julian's offer was insane. It was charity. It was a rich man's whim. Her pride screamed at her to throw the card away. But another part of her, the part that still devoured dense economic theory after a long shift, the part that ached with the phantom limb of her former life, whispered, "What if?" After a week of agonizing, she made the call. The air in Aspen was thin and crisp, a stark contrast to the recycled air of the grocery store. Julian's assistant had been ruthlessly efficient. A first-class plane ticket, a suite at a five-star hotel that cost more per night than she earned in a month, and a wardrobe of designer clothes that made her feel like an imposter. Julian met her in the hotel lobby. "Dr. Sharma," he said, with a knowing smile. "I did my homework." Anya felt a blush creep up her neck. "You could have just asked." "Where's the fun in that?" he replied. "I wanted to know if my instincts were still sharp." Julian, to his credit, was a graceful host. He introduced her simply as my associate, Anya, but the dismissive glances and condescending smiles from his peers were hard to miss. They saw a beautiful woman on the arm of a powerful man and drew their own conclusions. One portly banker, upon hearing she was from Julian's retail division, patted her hand and said, "Well, my dear, I'm sure you provide some very valuable insights." Anya's jaw tightened, but she just smiled, a placid expression she had perfected over 2 years of dealing with rude customers. She saw the anger flash in Julian's eyes, but she gave him a subtle shake of her head. She would fight her own battles. The climax of the conference was a keynote address by Dr. Alistair Finch, a celebrated economist from the European Central Bank. The grand ballroom was packed. Julian and Anya found seats near the back. The moderator stepped up to the podium, a grim look on his face. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have some unfortunate news. Dr. Finch has been taken ill and will be unable to deliver his address. We don't have a backup speaker prepared for his topic, which was to be the behavioral economics of post-crisis austerity measures." A wave of disappointed murmurs swept through the room. The schedule was thrown into chaos. It was a major embarrassment for the conference organizers. The moderator, looking desperate, made an impromptu plea. "This is highly unorthodox, but is there anyone in the audience, any expert in this specific niche, who might be willing to share a few thoughts to fill the time?" The silence was absolute. It was a deeply specific, complex topic. No one would dare risk their reputation by speaking unprepared in front of this audience. Julian felt a nudge. He looked down. Anya was leaning toward him, her eyes blazing with an intensity he had never seen before. Julian's breath caught in his throat. He looked from her determined face to the floundering moderator. It was a 1 in a billion shot. "Go," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Go." "I can speak on the topic," she said, her voice ringing with the same calm clarity Julian had first heard at the checkout counter. A ripple of whispers went through the crowd. "Who is she? Is this a prank?" The moderator looked skeptical, but he was desperate. "Please, come to the stage. Your name and affiliation?" Anya walked down the aisle, her borrowed heels clicking on the marble floor. She felt hundreds of eyes on her, a weight of judgment and disbelief. She took the stage, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the sea of powerful faces. "My name is Dr. Anya Sharma," she said, her voice steady and strong. "I hold a PhD in economics from the University of Chicago. And for the past 2 years, my primary affiliation has been as a lead cashier at a regional grocery chain." A stunned silence fell over the ballroom. It was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Julian watched, his heart pounding in his chest, as the condescending smirks on the faces of his colleagues were wiped away, replaced by gaping-mouthed shock. "Austerity," Anya began, "is not just a fiscal policy. It is a psychological weapon." She wasn't just reciting theory, she was breathing life into it. She was connecting the world of the Aspen conference to the world of aisle 5. When she finished, there was a beat of profound silence, and then the room erupted. It started with one person, then another, until the entire ballroom was on its feet, the applause thundering, echoing off the vaulted ceilings. It wasn't just polite clapping, it was a roar of approval, of shock, of respect. In the aftermath, Anya was mobbed. The same banker who had patted her hand now stood before her, stammering an apology, begging for a copy of her dissertation. CEOs, hedge fund managers, and central bankers shoved their business cards into her hands, their faces alight with the thrill of discovery. Later that evening, she and Julian sat by a large fireplace, the chaos having finally subsided. "You were magnificent," Julian said, his voice filled with awe. "Absolutely magnificent." "Thank you for seeing me, Julian," Anya said softly, looking into the flames. When no one else did. "I should have seen more," he admitted. "I saw a puzzle, an anomaly. I didn't see the systemic barriers that put you there. The sacrifices you made. The bias you faced." The experience had changed him, too. He had spent his life chasing numbers, but Anya had reminded him of the humanity behind them. Anya didn't take any of the dozen job offers she received that night. Instead, she accepted a different proposal, one from Julian. They co-founded a new kind of impact investment fund. A fund dedicated to financing businesses and social enterprises in checkout-line communities, the very places traditional capital ignored. Anya wasn't just an analyst, she was the chief economist and managing partner. Her first act was to create a fellowship program to support PhDs, especially women and people of color, who had been forced to pause their careers for family or other reasons, providing a bridge back into their fields. Dr. Anya Sharma's story is a powerful reminder that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. It reminds us that a person's worth is not defined by their job title or their uniform, but by the fire in their mind and the strength of their character. It challenges us to look past our own biases and see the hidden genius that stands before us every single day. Thank you for watching this incredible story. If you were inspired, don't forget to hit that like button and please subscribe to our channel for more stories that matter. Let us know in the comments what you thought about Anya's journey.